Thank you, and welcome to the session. As Klaus mentioned, touching on a very important topic in the current climate, ensuring business continuity and reducing supply chain risk, and integrating that with domain data management and our partner SiliconExpert. So during the session today, I'm going to cover three main topic points. Firstly, look at the problem, then introduce you to the solution from our partners, SiliconExpert, and show you how SiliconExpert combined with CR8000 and DS-CR, we can deliver a formidable solution and provide you with a show-stopping, successful design environment. But firstly, what are the challenges for design engineers today? Well, as they have been for many years, an engineer needs to innovate new products. We need to bring new products to the market, and engineers often find it a challenge, and a lot of resources is put into gathering the component information from different systems. We have to look at data sheets, we have to look at technical specifications, and then look at what circuitry we need around that to fulfill that. But then, of course, the responsibility is also for the engineers to look at availability, costs, timescales in terms of lead times, and more importantly, in the current situation, the supply chain and the ecosystem around obtaining those parts. So there's a lot more responsibility, a lot more has been put on the engineers' shoulders. And in terms of how this impacts the timescales and costs of the product lifecycle, of course, in the early stages, a change of part because of lead time issues, because of costs, is quite small. It's readily available to do a change. We need to, of course, look at the supply chain, the availability and the lead time, but then we implement a supply chain. But later on, the part could go obsolete, so we need to think about how we can minimize the cost of those. But as we move further in the design or the product life cycle, the costs gradually increase as to changing a part. And the other aspect is the impact and risk analysis that we must all do in terms of understanding the supply chain issues and the disruption to production and potentially discontinuation of products because we can't source the appropriate components. So just looking here at a product during the design and all the way to the product release, we have the engineer looking at the functionality of a component when he's designing or she is designing a new product. Then we move on to using the component in circuit and physical layout. So how does it fit in my design? Is it the right package in terms of surface mount components, the inductance and so forth is an important factor there. But then also, how does it fit into my housing? How does it fit onto the circuit board? And when we come to manufacture, the form, does it fit with the enclosure? Is it perfectly acceptable for the assembly process? And finally, when the product is released, if we have part obsolescence, then we need to take that on board at that point. So the engineer has a lot of challenges, a lot of responsibilities on their shoulders to do that, and we'll look at how SiliconExpert, one of our partners, can help you address that problem. So I'm going to look at it from 3 points. We're doing the initial part research as an engineer, then we'll move on to the part details, and then how we can, when we've completed the product, how we can build our confidence that the product has a product life cycle that is appropriate for the product. You know, we can source the components. But firstly, let's look at how SiliconExpert can help us on the research and detail phases. So in this video, what I'm going to do is use SiliconExpert, I'm going to search for some electrostatic discharge suppressor device. So I can use part numbers, I can use browse the categories, or I can just put in a search string and it will find components. And here I have a set of lists and I can filter them by other groups. Look at the active life cycle. So of course we want an active life cycle. And then we can look at which are ROS compliant, we can look which are REACH compliant, and we can look at the various information for each of those parts to help us. Here I'm going to reduce it to ones that have a pin count of 10. And then we can see the ones that fit that requirement that I have specified. So now it becomes a wealth of information in one small space, one single entry point to look at that information. And I can pick some of the ones, I can review the active life cycle, I can see the number of crosses, I can pick one and start looking into the detail of this. So this is the qualification and the research phase the engineer goes through. And obviously we have some crosses here. So if we need to look at alternatives, we can see their grade A, B. A means it's a pin for pin swap with technical spec. We can look at all the technical details of the part. So we can see that the temperature range is acceptable. We can look at the operating, we can look at the power dissipation, and then we can look at package information as well and manufacturing materials. And finally, if that's all to our acceptance, then we can go and download an ECAD model. So we can click on the download. And that will move on to one of the partners for SiliconExpert, which is Ultra Librarian. And here we can see a schematic symbol, a footprint, and a 3D model, which can be downloaded into our CAD library for CR8000. Then in addition to that, we can look at the compliance information. We can look at the market availability, which vendors have got that available. So we can see Arrow, DigiKey, Mauser, Texas Instruments, of course, will have availability of that part. And we can see pricing and lead time information, so we can see when it had a particular issue on the lead time. And we can see the fluctuation of the pricing, and you can monitor that continually. We can see some of the risk analysis. So multi-sourcing is a high risk, but everything else was low risk. So counterfeit, it's got a good life cycle of 10 years in this case, and the overall risk is pretty low. And we can access also data sheets here or product change notices. So all that is available in a single place. There's no more for the engineer to go searching multiple sites, multiple information. And here again, we can see the data sheet that is available. So it'll link directly off the SiliconExpert directly into the data sheet itself. So it's very helpful. We can also pass this information on to the procurement team, who may use this just for their own qualification process to accept it into the corporate library, corporate ECAD library. We can see here some of the crosses if we want to investigate second source or alternative components, so forth. Now we're at the stage we've built the circuit, we've built the physical printed circuit board. Now we want to just have our confidence before we release the product to manufacture, to production. And in that case, here I've using CR8000 Design Force, and we've got a circuit board laid out. We can see some of the components. I put this in the 3D view, but it's not limited or not. And now we can go and verify again with SiliconExpert the bill of materials and develop our confidence level that this product is suitable to go to manufacture. It has the life cycle, the longevity of the components in the product itself. And here we have a score, a rating, and then also down to each of the categories: lifecycle, multi-sourcing, compliance, and inventory. And we've got our bill of materials. Some parts have been recognized, some parts have not. But we have some matches where we can see low risk, high risk, and we can look at the part and gain our confidence level that the bill of materials is suitable for the production and assembly of this particular product. Just another way to focus on the high priority, high risk items. We can click on the high or the red area and see the parts that are the big risk items. In this case, we can see an obsolete part. And again, as I mentioned, we can look at the data sheet, look at the specifications, and in a moment, we'll look at what the crosses are or the alternatives for that particular part. So we need to focus on the same specification: temperature, operating temperature minus 55 to 150. We can see the price points, and we can see what's going on with this particular part in the past, and it's documented the end of life, the manufacturer of that particular part documented. And again, just reviewing the different criteria for the particular part. And now finding an alternative for that, we can see there are 125 crosses. This particular one has a product life cycle of 7.3 years, so that's good for our product. And we can look at the technical spec. We can see that it's in the same operating temperature range. It's got the same power rating. We can review the data sheet again to see that this particular part is the same specification for both manufacturing and also the electrical characteristics for it. And in this case, we can see that it's readily available at several of the electronic component distributors. We can also see the price points at various points in history and review the changes in the particular product, so the product change notices. So this helps us then choose an alternative part for what was a high risk item. So we can readily swap those components for the new parts that we've investigated as an alternative and put them into the design data. So that's showing you how we'll develop our confidence level in the bill of materials, and we're happy to move forward with the product into production, so releasing it and putting it into production itself. So at that point, we have no concerns on obsolescence of the part. We know it's got a good product life cycle. We've seen that the supply chain is readily available from multiple electronic component distributors. The volume is available. We can look at the pricing, we can look at the lead time, and all that has given us the confidence that we should move forward and release this product for manufacture. So in terms of the integration and how we work with our partners, SiliconExpert, for CR8000, as I've shown you, we have the bill of materials check from Design Gateway or Design Force that uses the SiliconExpert Connect service to verify the bill of materials. A second level in the domain data management area is we can be online 24/7 with the SiliconExpert database, but normally this is on a daily basis. You can be flagged up from extracting information, but 24/7 you can pull part information from the SiliconExpert part data through the API into the DS-CR aspect, the component master and the library master, library information inside of the domain data management, the product. So we have two levels of the interfacing, depending on where you want to find the solution that best fits your needs. To introduce you to how it works for the domain data management aspect, I've got a couple of videos here where we want to add a brand new part. The procurement team has approved my investigation on using a particular part, and they now want to add it into our corporate system. So we can look into the DS-CR. We have a part number that we've already searched in SiliconExpert. So we can utilize that part and use that to download the information from SiliconExpert. So I've got a skeleton set of information here. But we'll take that part, ADA 4000, and we'll want to use a part number of our own possibly, or we'll use the SiliconExpert part number, but there is a link. And we can then download that information, or we will download that information for the footprint and the schematic data. So just searching again for reasons of proving it as a procurement department may do, or as a librarian now doing, checking again that the part is available, checking it's compliant, and before they add it to their corporate library. And I'll just move forward. We've seen a lot of this checking and downloading and the information about the part. So if I just move, we have the information. We now want to update the information from SiliconExpert. We choose what information from the SiliconExpert database in the first column, what data we want to pull into our corporate ECAD library. And in this case, we're just going to select everything, pull in the data, and now we can see that data has come in from SiliconExpert. That's all been qualified through SiliconExpert and imported into our library component master inside of DS-CR. So if we look at that now, we can see all the information, the risk analysis that came in from SiliconExpert. So we've fully documented it at the requirements at a corporate level. We have all the information to justify the selection of this part. Here, just looking at the part now, we can find our part number that I used, not the SiliconExpert part number, but in this case we had our own internal part number system, and here's the part that was available. So we now need to, we've got the data inside of DS-CR. We now need to synchronize that to push it out to all the appropriate component databases that we have in the corporate infrastructure. That can be one core component library, that could be many across different sites. And again, a subset of parts may go to one particular component database where it doesn't go to others, and so forth. So we can control and pass that information into those different component databases. And now if we search for that part, we can see a lot more information in that component database. So we now have the information downloaded from DS-CR into a component database, into the CDB used by CR8000. Now, just looking at how we handle obsolescence of a particular part. Within the CDB, within the DS-CR, we can find the components and flag from SiliconExpert which ones have been marked up as obsolete. And that can be automatically passed from SiliconExpert, as I said, on a daily basis or on a 4-hour basis. You can extract the information from SiliconExpert. We can see that it's obsolete. We can see the part numbers. And we can then utilize that to find where this part is used in all projects in the data management. So we can see here that we've got several projects where it's used. And then we can update any one of these with the updated component selection. So the crosses that I showed you earlier, we may have found a suitable alternative through those crosses list. And we can now change that from the main data management solution directly, not having to open up the schematics, but doing it through a system in the domain data management. We're just looking at the bill of materials and automatically updating the parts in a particular project through the system here. So we've marked it. We can see here 2 of those 74AC14s are utilized in this particular project, IC24 and 25. And we can select the ones that we want to find the alternative parts for, or specify the alternative parts. So in this case, we're going to address IC25 just to show how this is done. And we're finding the alternative part and assigning it through the text-based system here, through the spreadsheet. So here we can see the items in the part list and in the circuit, IC24 and 25, and we want to reflect the information into the circuit data, and it's used in the controller circuit here. So we're going to update the controller circuit diagram part number in it without actually opening up the circuit information. So looking at the parts used in that design, we can open up the schematics just to show you and prove to you the part that's used in there and how in one instance, IC24, it's now the new part number, and in IC25's case, it's still the old part number. So we didn't open up the schematics, we did it all from the data management solution that is available within DS-CR. And handling the obsolescence, we pulled in the information from SiliconExpert, we found the crosses, we were informed about the obsolescence, we found the crosses, we applied the update inside of DS-CR and updated our projects, kept them still live, so extended their product life cycle. So in summary, what I've shown you today is how the SiliconExpert can be used for the part research, and it's saving for the design engineers reducing their design time for the state of researching, looking at the technical specifications of parts. I've introduced you to SiliconExpert being used with a domain data management solution where we can import the information from the SiliconExpert database. So we've used a single source of information from SiliconExpert as an engineering and procurement information source. We're getting the information directly from SiliconExpert as to the product lifecycle, last time to buy, obsolescence. So we're increasing the engineering productivity within inside the company. We're being flagged up automatically when availability of the parts is an issue, where the life cycle, where the lead time may extend further. And we're also being flagged up also product change notices, part change notices. So all that helps to reduce the workload for the engineer and therefore the costs of the project. Managing the obsolescence, we can see and easily find the crosses, the alternative components, check about their availability, their life cycle, their costs and lead times, and then implement alternatives through the domain data management, both in adding a new part into the library and updating the design through the DS-CR. And all that really helps us keep and manage our products to an active product life cycle, maintaining a good finger on the pulse of where the products are. And thank you for today's session.
So, thank you, Nick, for your presentation. You already provided a nice summary, but I can't resist the temptation to provide a kind of a layman's summary of this integration. I took a few notes, and let me start with a simple statement. It's nice to have a professionally designed PCB, but if you can't get the components to produce it, it's pretty worthless. Yeah. So that is quite evident. So what does the SiliconExpert integration into CR8000 and DS-CR offer? First of all, it offers an overview of all the suitable components and all the technical details and characteristics, also available alternatives for it. And then you can, including compliance information, also including vendor availability, and then you can download it into your library. Yes. Once you have got your design already established, you can verify your BoM and see if it is really manufacturable. And to conclude with, we have two levels of integration: directly into CR8000 or into the database DS-CR. Which one would be, this is my first question, which one would be the preferable integration from your point of view?
Well, the domain data management would be the more valuable one, because we're automatically being informed when parts have a last time to buy, or they're going to be going obsolete in 9 months' time because the manufacturer's flagged up to SiliconExpert. SiliconExpert can then make that available. So it's a push from SiliconExpert to us as the design engineers. So for me, that is a big value point that I have, that somebody is informing me, keeping a live stream of the part availability, part information. So the domain data management, DS-CR integration is for me first and foremost.
Yeah, which is particularly valuable in these times when components are in notoriously short supply. Yeah. Another question: does Zuken provide help to set up the integration to integrate it with a minimum of interruption into the established design flow?
Yeah, so putting this into depending on the specific case, on the infrastructure or the configuration for our users, that can be through the domain data management, introducing that and setting that up with how what information you want to pull from SiliconExpert. So that is all that we can support you with and inform you and guide you. There's a wealth of information in SiliconExpert that we can pull from. So yes, support from Zuken, definitely, and we will show you the best way, use our knowledge and experience to disseminate that to the users. Yes.
Okay, so that seems to be about it with the questions. It looks like you left no question open. You provided all information up front. Next time you prepare your information, I recommend leaving some gaps or building in some gaps so people can ask questions.
Okay.
It was a very comprehensive. Just kidding. It was a very comprehensive information, and thank you for that. Now, let me please reiterate the information that all presentations are available afterwards with a short lead time on this event platform. If you click on agenda, when the first presentation will be available, it's going to be uploaded automatically. Then under the agenda tab, you will find on demand, and then you get clicking on demand, you will get access to all the recorded informations. Initially, in the initial phase, the recordings will contain something like 5 minutes without talk track, because the recording is automatic and starts when the session is opened. But that will be edited over time. So just so you are aware, just go into forward to minute 3, 4, or 5, whatever, in order to find the beginning of the presentation. With that, I'd like to thank you, Nick, for your presentation, and I'd like to thank the audience for their interest. We will be back at 11:30 p.m. With an ECAD, with a technical overview of ECADStar. As you know, ECADStar is Zuken's new PCB design system for small and medium businesses. And Paul Young and Sarah Santangeli of the Zuken Distributed Quadro Solutions will provide an overview of ECADStar in addition to yesterday's presentation. Thank you with that, and we will be back at 11:30.